Signed, sealed, delivered. Bruno Guimarães is an Arsenal player. A £75 million deal, not 80, not 90, not the 100 million that was reportedly required to sign him. Arsenal get one of the very best midfielders in the Premier League at a very good price. They just got scarier. They just got better. And the Premier League, the transfer window, and everything surrounding it is heating up massively ahead of what could be an unprecedented season. Like, share, and subscribe. We're delving into this story. We're taking your calls live on the air as well. Let's do this, people. The Here We Go has landed. The confirmation from Ornstein that the deal is done and complete. Bruno G on his way to Arsenal to complete a medical to, of course, become an Arsenal player. Lots to talk about in this deal, but let's delve into the breaking news here from David Ornstein and George Culkin, who say here Newcastle are set to sanction the sale of Bruno Guimarães to Arsenal in a deal worth £75 million. Arsenal started negotiations at a significantly lower fee, whilst Newcastle wanted a higher figure. But the clubs are set to reach a compromise to allow the 28-year-old to seal his desired move to North London. Guimarães' former club Lyon are entitled to 20% of Newcastle's profit on the midfielder and will earn 6 to 7 million from the deal. The Athletic reported on Tuesday that Arsenal and Newcastle were nearing a full agreement over the transfer of the midfielder, who was in Spain in the club's pre-season training camp, but awaiting permission to undergo a medical at the Premier League champions, as the Athletic reported in early July. Guimarães informed Newcastle of his desire to leave the club and move to North London, with Arsenal initially expressing a willingness to pay up to 60 million for the Brazilian international. Now, I don't think anybody is surprised by this news. I don't think anybody is shocked that the deal is now completed. We know how much of a brilliant player this is. And I don't think we need to say too much about that. I obviously want to get your reaction to it. I want to know what you're thinking. I want to know what you're feeling. He's a phenomenal player. I'm not a massive fan of football fans nowadays overly segregating players. I love the way this player plays in an 8, but he's a 6. Or I love this way this player performs in the 6, but he's an 8. He's a central. What I love about Bruno G is a central midfielder. He can play in the 6. He can play in the 8. He can go box to box. He can be involved in the attack. He can defend well. He is very accomplished in every area of being a central midfielder, and that is absolutely imperative. That is absolutely imperative when it comes to this deal. Bear with me a second, people. I've got to update one thing. Bear with me 1 second. 1 second. There we go. He's going to be a phenomenal player. He's going to allow Declan Rice to get more rest. He's going to work very well with Declan Rice. The depth in that area now for Arsenal is magnificent. It truly is magnificent. The amount of depth, the amount of strength, the amount of quality that Arsenal now have in their central midfield areas. This is said with the utmost respect, and I hope it's taken that way. But when your worst player in midfield is Miles Lewis-Skelly, you're in a phenomenal position, because Miles Lewis-Skelly gets into nearly every single team in the Premier League and is arguably 4th or 5th choice in your central midfield. That is how much depth Arsenal have got in those areas. And I, for one, am jealous of that. I, for one, am frustrated about that. I, for one, am annoyed about that. But it isn't going to allow me to become bitter and twisted. This is a brilliant deal. And I know Arsenal need to add into their attack, but this is the type of signing, this is the type of player coming in that almost secures a back-to-back league title campaign for me when it comes to Arsenal. Looking at the business so far that other clubs have done, the change of managers, yes, there is pressure on City and Liverpool to compete for that league title, but I can't see a world where Arsenal don't retain it. I cannot see a world at this particular moment where they're not as defensively strong as last year. They're not going to over-attack and leave themselves susceptible to counter-attacks. They look like they may add an elite attacker as well to give them more moments of brilliance in the attack. They've added a midfielder that just means they don't have to run Declan Rice into the ground. This is bad news for anybody and everybody that wants to compete against Arsenal. This is terrible news. From an Arsenal perspective, it is just a thing of beauty. One of the best midfielders in the league, who is as close to a slam dunk as you can get. Brilliant age at 28, settled in England, can play in the Premier League, has been performing at Champions League, World Cup level, has been consistent throughout his time in England, isn't on the back of bad injuries and on the decline in his career. I would remember famously Fernando Torres to Chelsea. It looked like a slam dunk on paper, but if you followed him closely, those hamstring injuries, he was already on the decline. There is nothing to suggest this isn't going to be a magnificent signing. No, nothing is a guarantee in football, ever, especially transfers. But this feels as close to one as you could possibly get. This feels as close to a slam dunk, a perfect deal as there could be. And as a United fan, I look at this and there is a jealousy that my club isn't in the position to be able to do this. But it was interesting because I'm putting together a piece of content at the moment that partly is laughing at people changing their stance on Bruno G. There's a wonderful tweet, and I won't ruin the content, it will come out later, of a Man United fan, funnily enough, praising how good Bruno G was in April and now saying what a bang average player he is. But the clip that surfaced from when Declan Rice was being linked with an exit from West Ham, and there are people suggesting he should go to Newcastle over Arsenal because Newcastle are more likely to win major trophies in the next 5 years compared to Arsenal. And as much as that's funny to listen to and look at him read now in 2000 and in 2026 with the direction that both clubs have gone in and what Arsenal are winning and where Arsenal are now, it was also this moment to realize as a United fan, you can get to these stages, but Arsenal have done it the right way, the proper way. They have built a foundation. They built a style of football. They built a connection. And it's the lot. They added Declan Rice a couple of years ago, and now they're adding in the Bruno Gs onto that brilliant foundation. And there's an inspiring element where I look at it and go, I want my club to get back to this point where we do have a 200 million, 250 budget for a summer, but we can just go and spend that on two players that just give us those amazing marginal gains to maintain our position or just get over the line or whatever it may be. I'm jealous that we can't do that at the moment, simply because there's so many players that are needed. You need to behave a little different in the market. But I don't allow my frustrations at my club to make me jealous and attack other people. It's just my nature, each to their own, but that's just me. Fantastic business all round. Now, I want to speak about the fee. And by the way, if you haven't hit the like button yet, get that done. 4,600 people tuning in live this morning. Get that button hit. I want to speak about the fee because the £75 million fee must be discussed. Now, there's already going to be some damage control on this, and the damage control will be, but Arsenal only wanted to pay 50 to 60 million initially. They've well overpaid. They paid 75 million. No, they haven't. No, they haven't. Everybody knows that you bid lower than you're prepared to pay to begin with in most negotiations. Sometimes in life, there may be a necessity to hire somebody, so you just go in at a very good offer straight away because there is a desperation. But Arsenal are not desperate. And there are a number of Arsenal supporters, along with rivals, of course, that were behaving in such a desperate way this summer. And I would think it's a bad look for your club. And if your club was to echo your behavior, you would hurt yourselves in the longer term. Arsenal were always prepared to go to 70 to 75, maybe even as high as 80 million for the player. But if you start off at that level, you end up paying massively over the odds. No credible. And this is why Arsenal can't be the losers in this negotiation. No credible Arsenal outlet, no credible Arsenal in the know, no credible journalist said that Arsenal will not do a deal above 60 million. There's no way they'll negotiate. It just said this is what their opening offers are. Where the Newcastle press and a lot of Newcastle fans and a lot of Newcastle journalists said it's going to cost the same as Tonali or it won't happen. It was very matter of fact. The bidding's got to start with an 8 or Newcastle won't even have a conversation. Until the intermediaries.
Mikel Arteta has spent years building a squad capable of competing with Europe's elite. Every transfer has been another piece of a carefully constructed puzzle, and Bruno Guimarães may prove to be the final piece that completes the picture. Arsenal aren't just signing another midfielder. They're adding a player who thrives under pressure, a player who demands the ball when others hide, a player capable of controlling the rhythm of the biggest matches. Bruno has earned his reputation through consistency. Week after week, he has demonstrated why he is regarded as one of the Premier League's most complete midfielders. Whether breaking up attacks, launching counter-attacks, or dictating possession, he has become the heartbeat of every team he plays for. That is exactly what Arsenal believe they are adding. Imagine the possibilities. Declan Rice protecting the defence. Martin Odegaard unlocking defences. Bruno Guimarães connecting every phase of play. It isn't just about technical ability. It's about balance, control, leadership, and the confidence to dominate matches from the first whistle to the last. This transfer also sends a message beyond North London. Arsenal are no longer simply competing for top four finishes. They're targeting players who can help deliver major trophies. The club's ambition has changed, and this move reflects that new mentality. Of course, bringing in a player of Bruno's profile raises expectations immediately. Supporters will expect more control in midfield, greater creativity under pressure, more authority in the biggest fixtures. Those expectations come naturally when one of the league's standout performers joins an already talented squad. As the new season approaches, Arsenal fans will already be imagining Bruno stepping onto the Emirates pitch for the first time and forming partnerships that could define the campaign.